All right, just hit me up. Name, pronouns. We're talking about prison abolition. I've got sleepy brain. Hit me direct to it, directly. Okay, like a linebacker. All right, fucking kill me with the full weight of your arguments. Go.
Oh, good. I can try. I can do that as fast as I can. So, hi there. My name's Thaddeus Whalen. I go by Artificer online. Pronouns are he, him, his, and I am a public policy researcher that is currently in
Okay.
between public policy positions. And my last most recent position, I was actually a political consultant for the Nicole Thomas Kennedy campaign, who was actually a prison abolitionist running for city attorney in Seattle, Washington. The thing that I like to say about public policy degrees and generally people who are in this field is, unlike the slimy political science people who ask about why people are doing things, I ask about how.
I have no idea
And
when I
the
should
and the
talk because of the
situation that
delay between our speech. It's gonna kill me. Uh,
there it was right there.
just go on a gigantic speech until it's time for me to talk. Go. Public policy, prison abolition, hit
Sounds
me.
good.
Kill me.
All right. So, when it comes to prison abolition as a whole, I heard that you hadn't heard any good argumentations for it. And really, the point that I wanted to bring up, especially because I am a proponent for it after doing a lot of research into the criminal justice field, everything from the police to the prosecutors to the judges to the actual prison systems that deal with them. A lot of these situations that people who become criminally involved or criminal justice involved are incredibly problematic, to a level at which that the reason why prison abolition has become such a large topic is because the entire system as a whole has been failing. And this comes down to a really big, I would call it a trifecta of problems coming from from three sides. Firstly, the police that currently arrest people. Secondly, the prosecutors that are elected to take on these roles, and thirdly, the judges who are elected to give the harshest sentences possible. And really, I would like to actually hear about your front on this and what are the questions that you have? What has kind of like kept you from being kind to this system, and what kind of questions would you have in a if there was a system of prison abolition put inside the United States?
I don't know what I don't know what prison abolition means, so I can't really say. I mean, if we're talking about prison reform or reducing the social necessity of prisons, or about doing like I guess the issue is that like this is one of those things where lefties, because they're stupid and dumb and incapable of talking with other human beings, they will talk about how they want to abolish something, and then what they actually mean is that they like want to change it a bunch. Now, if you want to change the prison systems a bunch, I'm always in favor of that. I'm hugely. I literally did my baccalaureate thesis on that. Um, but if it's abolish as in getting rid of prison, then that's the thing that I have no understanding of how that could ever be implemented. I have no idea.
Okay. I can at least say that we're in agreement on the first portion of like the of a lot of in a majority of cases, especially within the United States, getting rid of prisons as a whole is going to be nigh impossible. It is a system that is just built into that has been built up so roughly and so harshly that trying to remove it would require a complete change to our judicial system, and that would go all the way down to the Constitution. When it comes to people who say that they want to abolish prisons as a whole, there is very strong arguments that say that find that at least in research that when it comes to how prisons treat people and how prisons get them out of the systems and put them back on the streets, a lot of times those prisons don't do the right thing for those people, and they either going back into prison, which is just recidivism, or even worse, they get completely cut off from society as a whole. And I think when leftists, especially if I'm speaking in this terminology, are coming at it from that point, they mean that system as a whole, especially when they mean like the punishment aspect of the criminal justice system.
Right. Well, yeah, well, I guess, I mean, the question would be, what alternative is there to prisons when you have people who are dangerous, and need to be, like, separated from other, from, like, broader society? And again, if this has anything to do with reform, then I agree completely. It's just that people, like, there are some people on the left who, as a concept, like, inherently, are opposed to the idea of doing that. And I don't know what alternative you could ever have.
Have you heard of diversion courts or treatment courts by chance?
I have.
That is one of the major ways that people have tried to press like the end of the prison complex. The For anyone in chat who doesn't know what a diversion or treatment court is, generally these systems are courts that are run by judges and prosecutors as per normal, but rather than arraigning, going to trial, convicting, and sentencing, these people are diverted into a system that gives them a treatment, a support group, help finding job and home, all of these different systems. And then once they're helped through that system, and maybe like some, I believe a lot of them do like community service through these support networks and such. Once they go through that process, they're out of the system, they're back to their normal
Sure,
lives.
but what happens if they decide not to do the community service? Or if it's not an addiction thing, or if they're like a murderer or rapist or something?
A lot of that kind of just comes down to the systems that exist currently. A lot of it is I will say a lot of it is untested. A lot of diversion courts have been taken in a very bad way. Personally, they generally only focus on, say, like drug or veteran or just these small groups of people rather than trying to approach the system as a whole. So a lot of the processes when it comes to, say, violent criminals, and sexual assault criminals, though those haven't really been tested on that front. And however much I can't say that they would work or not, I guess this is more in kind of like the philosophy of, I believe that people want to have some sort of help.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with that. It's just, I mean, obviously, the limits of this are when you reach people who actually do have to be separated from society. I don't believe the drug, like some petty thief inherently needs to be separated or condoned off, or the same for like a person who gets in a bar scuffle or whatever. But I get the issue is that when people like prison abolitionism means prison abolitionism, full stop. If we're talking about substitute systems, you can create rules, but those rules, if circumvented, well, what do you do then? Okay, sure, do your community service. Well, what happens if they don't? What if they just fuck off, right? Like, it seems like at the end of the day, everything leads back to prison for people who are incapable of or unwilling to engage with reformative systems, or if they're too dangerous to be kept, outside of a holding cell. Which I don't think is the case for most criminals, but it's certainly the case for a decent number of them.
I definitely agree. I like that. Like, it's really hard to kind of get away from the idea that you need to separate people from this from society sometimes. And however much I am like against that, and I will say I am a prison abolitionist purely because I like this is a long-term process that's going to take generations on our front. The situation, as I would call it, is that when it comes to especially the American system of just incredibly high levels of punishment and no levels of reform when it comes to prisoners and criminals and people who have been criminally justice system involved, that's where the system can be completely destroyed and or abolished and built into a different system. A lot of this is really building a different system that doesn't harm the individuals as much, either the criminally justice involved individuals or the people around, who or normal citizenry.
Right. Again, but you know what I have to say, right? There has never been a point in human history or social development where we haven't had murderers, rapists, sociopaths, people with antisocial personality disorder, bigots who want to commit hate crimes, that kind of stuff. I guess I'm just, at the end of the day, it seems like in order to have a functioning society, there needs to be some kind of collectively agreed upon like line where if you move past it, you either die or you get put in a box. It's inherently hierarchical, but I think it also leads to less harm than the idea that you can just have people running around, violating whatever rules they want, while a bunch of social workers sort of prance after them, like encouraging them to sign up for a local reform class or whatever. Like it seems like eventually you're always going to reach that point. And I mean, at that point, it seems like it's either summary execution, prison, or like banishment. But I don't even know how that would function in the modern world, and I hardly think that's better than imprisonment.
Yeah, the banishment argument is definitely not the best one because then you're just creating second class citizenry in a different country at that point in time. The it's real, like, I guess I think this may just come down to a long-term versus short-term view, and I definitely kind of have to temper myself on this front. Even as much as I like to say I don't like prisons and I don't really want people to and I don't want people to be forced to be in that system, it's still something that will exist for my lifetime. It will probably exist for the next generation's lifetime and the generation after that. There is a however much I want to say that these systems should be abolished, and crime being socioeconomic, if all those problems were solved, that these people wouldn't commit them. You are correct in saying that there are definitely people who will still commit crimes. I guess the only reason that I would say that, like, going for that supporting prison abolition movements and supporting the people who phrase their movements like that, especially people like Nicole Thomas Kennedy, it's not about the destruction of the entire system. More so it is about the it is a paradigm shift from the understanding that prisons are what they are now to something that is more helpful to the criminal justice system as a whole, is helpful to the society as a whole.
Yeah, I wonder if we should just stop that. I don't know. It seemed like it backfired with the police too, like the abolish the police or whatever. Because if you like talk about that, right, like most people will be like, okay, well, abolish the police doesn't literally mean abolish the police. It means like, you know, strong reforms and what have you. But then like there are also people who do think it means abolish the police, and either way, it just sounds like insane to liberals or whatever. I don't really know. It just seems like it creates a lot of optical confusion that I'm getting less on board with time. Um, because it always seems kind of regrettable
I
in
would definitely
hindsight.
agree.
Oh,
The situation as it stands, like the abolition kind of like standpoint is kind of that rallying cry to leftists, and I will say that that's actually kind of what got Nicole Thomas Kennedy through the primary. I have to kind of go to the places where I've done this before. I hate to kind of like keep going back to Seattle politics, but this idea of prison abolition really was a rallying cry for the younger leftist leaning side of Seattle, and actually got Nicole Thomas Kennedy through the primary into the general election. It was it was definitely a chilling effect on liberals, though, and that's kind of really hard to get past because. And that's kind of why the third thing I wanted to talk to you today about was just being involved in your like I hate to just kind of do this, but chat, please be involved in your local elections. For the love of God, these Nicole Thomas Kennedy lost to a Trump supporter by 4 percentage points. 4 percentage points in an off-year election in Seattle. We now have someone who wants to criminalize homelessness as a city attorney in Seattle, and I am incredibly sad about that. I apologize to go on like that light diatribe, but in a real sense, these the optics of it as a whole really do. I agree with you that the optics of abolish definitely doesn't get to liberals nearly as much, and that's why I kind of signal to people to just follow those local elections and see who has the right ideas behind them.
yeah, I'm not going to argue against that. And certainly people who claim they want to abolish prisons are overwhelmingly going to have better opinions on prison reform than most people who would argue against that line, for the most part. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just want like I just there are so many like Twitter anarchists or whatever who say like abolish X, abolish Y, and I never like sometimes it's like it's like, oh, well, what I actually mean is, and then like it's like 400 reasonable reforms or whatever. It's like, yeah, okay, but um like with the abolish police stuff as well, I don't know how you could ever not have police. You could have the role of police done by different institutions with better accountability and better, like, structures of response. But I mean, we're still kind of reform. Basically, you're still keeping the fundamental institution, stuff like that, law, the courts. I don't really know how you could do without that. um and sometimes it seems like you're fine because you're doing this, but it seems like a lot of lefties are like allergic to engaging with the systems they criticize. You advocate for involving yourself in local politics, which is good, and I agree. It's just sometimes it feels like, the you taint yourself by getting involved. You know what I mean? It's like, say you're at like a Shake Shack and it's fucking disgusting in there, you know? Like you could go there and go like, "Hey, clean it up," and then leave, and that would be kind of a maybe a true statement that you could just wander off after saying, but how do you clean it? Well, you have to know, don't you? You have to work there. You have to know about the grease traps, and you have to know about the little spigots that they use the milkshakes. You got to know about the bathrooms and how to open up and refill the knowledge of how to fix the system is harder to obtain than the knowledge that the system needs to be fixed. And I think a lot of lefties kind of understand that if they know enough about capitalism or the criminal justice system or whatever else like that, then they would denigrate the purity of their virtue signaling, by having to acknowledge that actually the ways in which they need to address these systems are really nuanced and complicated, you know?
Absolutely. I like that's kind of like one thing that really did happen. I was at like when I was able to work on the decarceral movement as a whole, and there was all these good ideas and all these wants that people wanted to have behind them. And we actually had to the group of us, we actually got to have a conversation with a sitting Congress member, one of Maryland. And he was very intrigued in hearing what we had to hear, up until we mentioned the idea of just changing how misdemeanors and felony theft are ruled. And the reason why he was against it was because he was the owner of Total Wine. So it was immediately against his viewpoint and his goals to just ever engage with that. And really, like this is kind of, and then on the other side of the coin, there are people who are just wanting to just say, well, we can just get rid of the bail system, or we can just get rid of the trial system or the plea deals. A lot of that is just insanity to me, especially after looking through this system and trying and seeing and staring into the void that as you dig deeper into the system, it gets just worse. But that's kind of why I am so like up and happy to try and reform these systems, because there are active, very easy ways to fix these places that would change the system entirely, while not and actually having both liberal and conservative support. The ACLU has actually done a lot of good work in southern states. I think they actually got like thousands of petty drug charges in Oklahoma, pardoned, or at least clemency. It was wild.
Yeah, yeah, no, engagement. It's not just about harm reduction, you know? I don't like the term harm reduction because if you think about it for a second, harm reduction just means less bad things, and less bad things means good, and good is good, you know? Like, harm reduction seems to be some kind of soy-cucked, liberal, watered-down version of saying something is morally good. Like, if something is harm reduction, it's morally good. Like, there's no, like, people say, like, I don't care about harm reduction. Well, then you don't care about doing good. It's good equals good. That's what it means. So there's this snobbery towards the ways in which you improve something, as though any system in human history has ever been made better by people snobbishly denouncing it without any specific ideas for reform, and then it just happened and things were better. Like, usually it's a pretty bloody and painful process as you just drag social, like, systems and public opinion towards your desired goal as arduously as you can over a period of sometimes hundreds of years. Yeah, so I don't really know.
It's a hard question, and it's really difficult to get people on board with it. And honestly, I like, however much it's weird, I think harm reduction has actually been really good for like liberals. They really do like the idea that they are reducing the amount of harm. And while that may not work on a real level for, say, like actually helping these people, I think harm reduction and like that and utilizing that idea rather than saying like abolition of drug crimes and stuff like that. Those are really like the right way to do those things. And as you said, these things happen over hundreds of years. I am probably going to work on a singular portion of this for my entire life, and I'm probably going to change it minutely. There is a I really like, and that minute hopefully is the Seattle Police Department and the Seattle Police Officers Guild, because they are just awful.
Hey, they keep us safe.
I heavily disagree with the SPOG. They are in I have written an entire thesis on just the absolute degradation they have done when it comes to safety inside of Seattle. Unless you're just you're doing a sarcasm posting at me.
I am sarcasm posting at you. Wait, if you've been listening to me through the stream echoes this entire time, does that mean you've had to hear your own voice while you talk to me?
I keep muting it every time. I am definitely allergic to my own voice, so I've basically just been finishing my point, immediately turning the volume back on, hearing like the last like two syllables, and then and hearing your point.
Wonder why Discord is being such a cuck about this. Well, either way, no, yeah, either way, I agree with you. I would have a more prolonged discussion, but I'm pretty tired, and honest to God, I was just kind of hoping to dump on somebody who said we need to get rid of all prisons forever, no explanation, leaves room, no follow-up, you know? But I am interested in the work that you do, if by proximity for no other reason. Could you, could you tell us more about what you are doing at the moment and intend on doing in the near future?
Yeah, so I am actually kind of just in between work as of the moment, especially when it comes to policy efforts. A lot of my work, especially when it came to my research, did very much with like the entry to the criminal justice system. More specifically, I did a heavy deep dive into the problems of the Seattle Police Department and their involvement with the George Floyd protests. My hope is to get involved with Washington, King County, or just in general, like the some civil area to try and work on just general judicial reforms and so internal to the system. A lot of and when it comes to a lot of that, it's just being willing to have the credentials and apply to the positions on government jobs. So my hope is I'll find a nice place there, and then continue to make the small gear changes that need to happen. If anyone wants to follow me or like listen to my ranting about the police systems, you can find me at Twitter, at Artificer, with the first I being a one. It's a and mostly it's about 50% police posting, and then about 25% sports, and then another 25% about just Dungeons and Dragons. Vaush, I apologize that you didn't get to dunk on someone that just prisons are bad leaves.
One day, my friend, one day I'll get it. I I appreciate sincerely you coming on, however brief. I am going to go and stream and drink more coffee, I think.
Of course, have a wonderful evening.
Be well.